The scream started under the water and ripped straight up through the surface like a harpoon made of pure hunger. Low whisper. That was the night Lost Pine Lake decided to scream back. My name's Ethan Rowe. This happened outside Libby, Montana. Me and my brother Caleb hiked 3 brutal miles up a grizzly trail. Because nobody else was stupid enough to fish Lost Pine Lake at midnight. We'd been night fishing these rocks since we were kids. Rainbow trout the size of your forearm. Ice-cold beer. Stars so thick it hurt to look at them. Late September. Air sharp enough to cut. We're just settled in. Lanterns off, lines in the water. When the lake starts doing something it's not supposed to do. Water ripple SFX, ripples, huge, moving against the wind, rolling in from 400 yards of black glass. Caleb whispers, "Ethan, you seeing this?" The water bulges. Something rises, slow, silent. Wrong, head, shoulders, torso, too upright. Too still, terrified whisper, it's a woman. Standing, waist deep, swaying like the lake is breathing through her. Long black hair plastered to bone-white skin. She's not shivering, she's not even breathing hard. Minutes crawl, we can't move. Can't speak, then she folds forward. No splash, and the lake swallows her whole. Caleb's stopwatch is already running. 1 minute, 90 seconds. 2 minutes. Voice rising, nobody holds their breath this long. Nobody knew ripples, only now they're 50 yards out. And coming straight. For us, like a torpedo, pack the shit. Now, rods crash, tackle box explodes, sinkers flying everywhere. And the water 10 feet in front of us explodes upward. She rises smooth as oil 19, maybe 20. High cheekbones, eyes like oil slicks, dark. Emerald one piece clinging like a second skin. Whisper beautiful. The way a glacier is beautiful. Cold, perfect. Lethal, she smiles with too many teeth. Hey boys, soft, almost shy, like we're the ones who don't belong. Caleb stammers, what the hell are you doing? Swimming, she laughs. Waters. Perfect. Once you're under, beat, come in with me. I choke out, it's 38 degrees. You'll die. Her smile never moves, but the air drops another 10 degrees. I've been waiting, she whispers, so long. Grab Caleb's sleeve. We're leaving. Distorted scream SFXN. Oh. Her face splits open. Lips peeled back, eyes rolled pure white. Get in the water now. Then the real screaming starts. 100 drowning throats ripping at once. We run. Branches exploding beside us. Something running parallel on the shore. Too fast, we hit the truck doing 60 on a road that should have killed us. Rearview mirror, something pale flashes at the edge of the headlights. Then gone sheriff drags the lake. Finds nothing. We go back with Dad and a shotgun 6 more times. Never see her again. Or so we told ourselves last summer, Moose Fire, Idaho. 11,000 feet. I'm alone above an alpine tarn. Long pause. Wind, the water bulges just once. Emerald flash under the surface. I dropped my tool and ran to Miles screaming. Final whisper, almost inaudible. She's still down there, in every cold mountain lake after dark, waiting, and sometimes, when the wind comes down off the glaciers just right. I still hear her calling I still think about that night at Pine Hollow Reservoir, and it creeps into my mind more often than I'd like. It's been about 2 months, but the images, the feelings, the sudden adrenaline spikes it, all comes rushing back like it happened. Yesterday was supposed to be just another weekend adventure with John, Sam, and Kia, my usual crew. We'd been sitting around on a lazy Saturday afternoon, complaining about being bored, when Sam suggested Pine Hollow. The name alone made me feel a flicker of excitement. He promised quiet waters, some base to fish, and a place where we could escape the chaos of everything else. John immediately perked up at the idea of fishing. Kia and Sam were more interested in chilling by the water, drinking a little, enjoying the late afternoon, and maybe swimming if they felt like it. I can't even tell you why. But something about the suggestion made the hair on my arms stand up, not from fear at first, but from a strange anticipation that something different, something memorable was about to happen. Kier's house is tucked far back in the woods, the kind of place that feels like it's 100 miles from anything familiar. The reservoir itself is maybe 10 minutes away by car. Then a short walk through dense pines, their shadows stretching long and dark as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The area is technically county property, and no trespassing signs line the fences surrounding the reservoir. But Kia had cut a hole in the fence years ago, and we had all laughed about it every time we came. Every time it felt like we had stumbled across our own secret world, one nobody else knew about. Pine Hollow is small, surrounded on 3 sides by thick woods, and on the 4th by a narrow access road. The water is clear and calm, with a little sandy patch we had claimed as our beach. Complete with flat rocks we could sit or lie on, was the perfect hidden spot. No one would bother us, and we could be as loud or as rowdy as we wanted. When we arrived, the sun was already sinking low, painting the sky with deep reds and oranges that reflected off the water. John and I immediately started unpacking the fishing gear, though I knew we'd probably end up more focused on talking and laughing than actually catching anything. Kier and Sam spread out a blanket, grabbed some drinks, and set up a little music, the kind that faded into the background, but made the space feel alive. The air was crisp, a gentle wind blowing through the pines, carrying the smell of damp earth and water. I felt a buzz of excitement mixed with an unshakable tension I couldn't explain. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the thrill of being in one of our secret spots, away from everything else. As Kia and Sam debated whether to dip into the water, my attention was drawn to a slight movement in the reeds further down the shoreline. Kia squinted and pointed, and I followed her gaze. That's when I saw it. A small canoe wedged awkwardly among the reeds near the water's edge, tilted slightly, as if it had drifted there without anyone securing it. I froze for a moment. Something about it felt wrong. We had been to Pine Hollow dozens of times over the past year, and I had never noticed a canoe there before. Not one that looked like it had been left behind so carelessly. My stomach twisted, a mixture of curiosity and unease settling over me like a weight. John, always curious, immediately suggested we go check it out. I wanted to hesitate. I wanted to tell him maybe it's better to leave it alone, but the pull of curiosity won over. We started walking along the bank, careful not to make too much noise, though the uneven ground made that impossible. As we approached the canoe, I could see that it wasn't empty. Someone had been there recently. A fishing rod still dangled over the edge, the line trailing into the water. A tackle box lay open as if someone had been rifling through it moments before. There was even a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in plastic, sitting on the seat. But the strangest, most unsettling thing was the phone. It sat on the main seat, locked, the flashlight blinking on and off. I couldn't believe anyone would just leave their phone behind. Who does that? I stared at it, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe they had been scared off. Maybe they were trespassing and left in a hurry. But leaving a phone perfectly good and functional behind, that made no sense at all. My chest tightened, my pulse quickened. Something about that moment felt heavy, almost suffocating. John and I studied the canoe in silence, our thoughts circling the same possibilities and none of them satisfying. The half-eaten sandwich could be explained. The fishing rod could be explained, but the phone? That was the anomaly. My frustration began to rise, not at John, Not at Kia, not even at Sam, but at the situation itself. It made no sense, and our inability to understand it was maddening. The canoe rocked slightly in the gentle wind, and I felt a sudden jolt of fear, imagining someone could be nearby, just out of sight, watching us as intently as we were watching the abandoned craft. I hated that I felt so powerless, so exposed. In a place we had always thought was safe, we turned back to the girls to tell them what we had found. As I explained, my frustration grew. I wanted to convey the strangeness, the eerie wrongness of it, but the words felt inadequate. Kia looked uneasy. Sam tried to laugh it off, but even his casual demeanor didn't mask the tension. I could feel my chest tightening further, a low hum of adrenaline that made my hands shake slightly. I wanted to leave, to run back to the safety of Kier's cabin, but I also didn't want to appear cowardly, and that internal battle made me feel even more trapped. My mind raced with scenarios, from someone merely leaving their things behind to something far darker and more threatening. Every rational explanation seemed insufficient, and the uncertainty gnawed at me. Then Kia gasped. My heart skipped a beat. I followed her gaze across the water and froze. On the far side of the reservoir, a figure stood knee-deep in the water. Even as the sun set and shadows lengthened, I could see them clearly. They held something long in their hands, perhaps a fishing rod, perhaps a stick, but it wasn't the object that terrified me. It was the stillness, the unwavering stare, the sense that they had been there long enough to see everything we were doing. I felt an icy wave of fear wash over me. Every muscle in my body tensed. My mind scrambled for rational explanations, but none came. The figure didn't move, didn't blink, didn't react. It simply existed there, a silent observer of our intrusion. The fear quickly shifted to panic. I could feel John and Sam tensing beside me. Kier's breath was shallow, rapid, almost uncontrollable. My frustration at the entire situation, at the canoe, the abandoned phone, and now this watching figure morphed into a visceral need to escape. We had to get out, and fast. Every step back toward the hole in the fence felt agonizingly slow. The adrenaline coursing through me was almost paralyzing. My legs burned, my heart pounded, and yet the thought of running felt terrifying because of the figure in the water. I couldn't shake the image of those eyes or what felt like eyes tracking us. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet my brain tried desperately to formulate a plan. The frustration of knowing what we should do, but feeling trapped by fear was almost unbearable. Suddenly, the figure raised a hand, yelling something unintelligible. The sound sliced through the evening air, a harsh, guttural command that made my blood run cold. They started moving into deeper water, swimming toward us. I screamed for everyone to run. Kia stumbled but caught herself. Sam's face was pale with terror, and John's usually calm demeanor was replaced by raw panic. We sprinted, moving faster than I thought possible, my shoes slipping on the damp earth, my lungs burning, my mind barely processing the scene. The water splashed behind us as the figure pursued, their presence closing the distance faster than I thought anyone could in water. My frustration turned into pure, unfiltered, fire-wild, desperate desire to survive, overriding every other thought. We reached the fence and scrambled through the hole. My hands scraped on the metal, the rough edges cutting into my palms, but I barely felt it. I was focused solely on escape. Behind me, the splashing grew louder. I could hear the figure pushing through the water, relentless, unyielding. Finally, we made it back to Kier's car. She floored it, tires skidding on the dirt road as we raced away. The wind whipped through the windows, and for the first time in what felt like hours, I allowed myself to breathe. My heart still raced, my chest still tight, but at least we were moving. At least we were safe temporarily. For the next 20 minutes, we sat in silence in Kier's driveway. Sam tried to calm himself. John attempted to rationalize what had happened, and Kia shook visibly, her hands still gripping the steering wheel. I felt a wave of frustration at the situation, at our inability to explain it, at my own naivety. In thinking we could have a normal, carefree night at the reservoir, every scenario I imagined seemed worse than the last, each one more terrifying than the one before. And yet, despite all this, my mind kept returning to the figure, to the canoe, to the abandoned phone. I couldn't shake the sense that the reservoir was hiding something, that we had intruded into a space that was not meant for us, and that something had noticed. It's been months since that night. None of us have returned to Pine Hollow Reservoir. The memory lingers, a constant presence at the back of my mind. Part of me wants answers, wants to understand what we saw, who or what was in the water, and why that canoe and that phone were left behind. But another part knows it's better not to know. The frustration, the fear, the adrenaline, all of it, the memory, is almost unbearable, yet I cannot let it go. Every time I close my eyes, I see the water, the reeds, the still figure, and I remember the helplessness and the terror, and I know I will never forget that night, not as long as I live. Some people say the Florida marshes are peaceful, quiet, calming. They've never been out there alone, and they've definitely never watched someone get pulled under by something that shouldn't exist. My name is Justin, and this is the story I've never been able to tell without shaking. The day I almost watched my best friend Paul get dragged into the Kissimmee River marsh by something that still keeps me awake at night. If you ever plan to fish the shallow marshes of Central Florida, you need to hear this, because something lives out there, something strong, something fast, something that knows exactly how to pull a man under without leaving a single ripple behind. Fishing has always been one of the few things that quiet my mind. Every chance I get, I'm either on a lake, a canal, or deep in the marshlands where the river stretches into a maze of reeds and hidden channels. 2 months ago, headed out with my friend Paul, the only person I know more obsessed with fishing than me. He lives for it. Saltwater, freshwater, didn't matter. If it swam, he wanted to catch it. We decided to hit the Kissimmee River marshes for trout and bass. We'd been there dozens of times. We thought we knew the place. We didn't. The marshes out there are shallow, thick with mud, roots, and underwater vegetation. Too shallow for a motorboat, so we took my 2-person kayak, like always. It was early spring. Cold enough that the air stung your nose, and the water somehow colder. We paddled for half an hour, weaving through tall reeds until we found a spot that looked perfect. No boats, no fishermen, not a single sound except the wind brushing through SAWGRASS. Exactly how we liked it. Paul cracked open a beer. I cracked open mine. Life was good. For a while, we'd been fishing maybe an hour when Paul hooked something that bent his rod like crazy. "Yo, Justin, this feels like a good one," he shouted. He leaned too far over the side of the kayak, trying to get a better angle, and right then, saw it, his phone sliding out of his hoodie pocket. I opened my mouth to warn him, but the second I inhaled, it was already too late. Plunk, straight into the dark. Muddy water. He didn't even care about the fish anymore. His entire face dropped. No, 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 my God, my phone. He paddled with his hands, splashing everywhere like panic would bring the phone back. You need to understand something about Paul. He could break a bone and shrug it off, but losing that phone, that meant trouble with work, money, everything. He did have insurance, but only if he could actually return the old phone. If it was lost, he'd be paying hundreds out of pocket. Money he didn't have. I didn't blame him for freaking out. We were both paycheck to paycheck guys. I told him we'd try to find it. even though the water was so cloudy you couldn't see more than a few inches down. So we spent 20 minutes dragging our paddles along the bottom, searching, hoping, nothing but mud and weeds, and frustration building like pressure in a sealed bottle. At one point, Paul slapped the water and yelled, "WH, why did IT have to be today?" His voice echoed across the marsh. That's when I started to feel off, like the marsh had suddenly gone to quiet. But I brushed it off as overthinking. I wish I hadn't. I told Paul we weren't going to find it, that we should just try to enjoy the day. He shook his head. Hard? No, I'm not leaving without that damn phone. Before I could say anything, he started stripping shoes, socks, pants, until he was standing on the kayak barefoot and, angry, "I'm going in." "Paul, that water's freezing." "I don't care." He stepped in. The minute his feet touched the water, he jolted upright like he'd been electrocuted. Jesus, cold. But he kept going, waiting until the water rose to his mid-chest. The spot was deeper than we thought. We always assumed that part of the marsh was shallow all the way across, but Paul was standing in 4+ feet of dark water. Still, he started, feeling around with his feet. Meanwhile, I sat in the kayak, watching, tapping my paddle, getting more impatient by the second. Something inside me was saying, "This is wrong. This is stupid. Get him out of there." But he looked so desperate, so frustrated, that I let him keep trying. Every few seconds, he'd say things like, "I think I felt something, wait, no, just mud." We'd been out there long enough that the sun had shifted. Shadows stretched across the marsh. And that uneasy feeling in my gut grew stronger. Then it happened. Out of nowhere, Paul jerked forward like someone shoved him from behind. His arms flew up, his body folded like he tripped on nothing, and he disappeared under the water. 1 second, he was there. The next, he was gone. At first, I thought maybe he slipped. Maybe he dove down to grab something. But 3 seconds passed. 4, 5, then 10. Nothing, no bubbles. No thrashing, just silence. Something in me snapped. I kicked off my shoes, threw my jacket aside, leaned over to jump in when the water exploded. Paul burst through the surface so violently the kayak rocked sideways. He was covered head to toe in thick marsh. Mud, gasping, screaming, "Go, go. Get the hell out of here. Go now." I grabbed him under the arms and hauled him back into the kayak. He was shaking uncontrollably, not from cold. From fear. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at his legs. He only looked behind us, back at the water like he expected something to rise up and grab him again. I didn't hesitate. I paddled like a madman, every muscle in my body burning. Paul was panting, shivering, whispering, "It's coming, it's coming." I kept glancing. Back to, I couldn't help it. And I swear, as the kayak carved through the water, I heard something behind us. A splash. Then another. Too evenly spaced to be random. Like something was pacing us underwater. The reeds swayed. The water rippled. Shadows moved in ways they shouldn't. We finally reached a wider channel where the water cleared up. Only then did Paul speak. I said, "Dude, what happened? What pulled you down?" He stared forward, jaw clenched, eyes wide. It grabbed my ankle? What did? I don't know. He ran both hands through his hair and kept talking. It wasn't a gator. It wasn't a fish. It wasn't teeth. It wasn't claws. It was something. Something that wrapped around me, like a hand. No, not a hand. But strong. Too strong. He swallowed hard. When it pulled me under, it didn't pull me straight down. Kay tried to drag me away into the deeper marsh. He started shaking again. I kicked and kicked and kicked. I thought I was done. I thought I was dead. He held out his hands. They were trembling. I only got free because it slipped off. Otherwise, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. We called it a day and headed back to the boat launch. Paul didn't say a single word the whole way back. His phone was lost. But that wasn't what bothered him anymore. Not at all. It was the thing in the water. It's the thing that grabbed him. I tried to blame it on a big catfish or an alligator gar, or maybe a tangled root. But deep down, even I knew that wasn't true. The way he was pulled, the way the water behaved, the silence around us. It didn't add up. And the deeper I thought about it, the more wrong it felt. I spent days looking online, articles, fishing forums, wildlife reports, nothing. No creature behaved like that. No fish dragged people sideways. No root system had that kind of force. Paul stopped fishing for a while. He wouldn't go near water deeper than a bathtub, and every time his phone buzzed with the insurance company asking what happened, he'd freeze. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to remember it. And honestly, neither did I. But something in me still wanted answers. What grabbed him? What was under that water? Why did the marsh feel so different that day? The unsettling end, I still feel watched since that day. Every time I return to the Kissimmee Marsh, I feel it. That same unease, that same heaviness, like the water remembers us, like something is still waiting. I'll be sitting in the kayak, minding my business, when suddenly the marsh goes too quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind, just silence. And then, that feeling returns. That feeling of being watched from below. I haven't seen anything since. But sometimes, when my paddle cuts through the water, I swear something moves just out of sight. Not fast, not aggressive, just observing, waiting. And I know one thing for sure. What grabbed Paul wasn't a fish, wasn't a gator, wasn't anything that belongs in the water. Something else lives in the Kissimmee River marsh. Something that knows how to take a man without making a sound. And one day, it might try again.